Hey there. So we're at the end of our short term for this Moral Issues in Capitalism course. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found some of the topics interesting. Hopefully you're thinking about them in slightly deeper ways, a little more analytical ways, sort of topics that, hey, they come up around the family table when you're at gatherings and such. So hopefully you've enjoyed it and you leave with a new set of perspectives, a new set of tools to use when addressing some of the moral issues that come up in our system and what the experience is like in some other parts of the world where they have somewhat different systems. I always feel short courses leave a little bit on the table. I wish we could get into a little more discussion, more back and forth about some of these, and I could really hear more about your thoughts on some of these issues, because it can be really fun to talk about. Hopefully we'll get a chance in the future. Feel free to reach out with me. My lines are open even after the course is done. I look forward to hearing from you guys and getting updates about what you're up to as new thoughts come across you, because you'll inevitably run into these topics in different ways in the rest of your education as you enter the workforce, etc. So a few notes about the final paper. I'm not looking for a rigid number of pages. I'm not a stickler for a certain type of formatting. You can use citations that I don't care if it's APA or Chicago Manual of Style or whatever form of references you want to use. Try to be reasonably consistent in the way you do it. Do attribute, especially if you're quoting someone, make sure you tell me who it is, where you're getting that from. So do use references of some sort. The amount of references you'll need, it depends on your topic. It depends on kind of what non-moral premises are part of your argument. That's where you're really going to need references to support your position, right? So if you choose to write about global inequality, you're going to need some statistics about global inequality. So, cite me to a report by the OECD or the UN or whatever reputable body has some statistics that are relevant for whatever argument you're trying to make. Now, I do encourage you to kind of take a position on the topic. So if you were talking about global inequality, you may argue that there's nothing for us to do about it. That global inequality is certainly a phenomenon that we see, but it's not one that creates a moral imperative for us to do anything about in a systematic way, at least at this time. So that's a reasonable position to take on this, right? You could argue the other side. You could argue that we have a moral obligation to do more about global inequality. But either side, there's no right or wrong answer to these questions. You will find it easier to write a paper if you do pick a side. I'm looking for a persuasive element to your paper. So pick a side and then support it and say, here are statistics about global inequality. Everyone talks about it like it's a horrible thing, but it actually hasn't been getting that much worse based on these numbers. I'm kind of making this up as I go. This is assuming that you actually have the support for this, right? But so maybe your argument is inequality hasn't gotten that much worse, and in fact, if you look at extreme poverty across the world, it's gotten much less widespread over the last 20 years. What we've seen is a lot of really poor people being lifted out of that extreme poverty, and that's without a lot of global action. That's actually letting kind of markets do their thing. So we should continue to do that. That could be your position. And you can support it in a maybe 4 or 5 page paper, right? Using some different sources. You would want to address the main arguments of the other side. So take on those counter arguments and don't just use a straw man argument. Really do give the best argument, the best phrasing of the argument the other side would give. Don't make it overly simplistic just to be able to knock it down easily. Otherwise, it's not convincing. So those are, you'll see on the grading rubric, those are basically the things I'm looking for. You pick a topic, you take a stand on it, you then basically support that stand, and along the way address the counter arguments for the other side. By doing that, you're going to show me that you can engage in this critical thought, you can lay it out on paper, you can try to persuade someone about a position, you can use support evidence for your position, and that's where probably the most economics in this course will come in the form of the evidence that you're using, but also the basic topics that we're picking are all related to our economy. So don't worry too much about, I'm not looking for cites to economic journal articles or things. If you want to use them, great, but there's no need for that in a paper like this. What I want is really to do your best to lay out a persuasive argument in 4, 5, 6, 7 pages, something in that range. Again, I'm not going to be a stickler about formatting. I look forward to hearing your thoughts, and reach out to me if you have questions. I'll be grading them. The grades are due on Tuesday, the 19th, I believe it is. So grades will be in by then. I'll be grading things kind of as they come, but I'm not saying I'll have an instant turnaround. So I will say first in, first out. The sooner you submit, the earlier you are in the queue, and grades will be out before too long. Can't be more than a week and a half from when I'm recording this, because that's when grades are due. So there we go. We know you won't have to wait for too long. I can't promise that I'll have your grade posted the day after you submitted or anything, just because of wanting to take the time and care to give it a good read, a good look. So thank you for your contributions in the class. Thanks for sticking with me through some difficult goings on in the world with pandemic and political unrest and all of that. Certainly moral issues all over the place when we look. So use that critical thinking cap early and often. Thanks again.